get to see all the weird things that I'm doing to set up my camera. I have no production team, no editing. This is just straight up me. Here I am. And I took the day off yesterday because our 4-year-old graduated pre-K and it was much needed to take a rest from work and be with her and be present, excuse me, with my family. But here I am in all my glory. Did not expect to record this type of episode that we're going to get into today. Wanted to show you the belly, little bump that we've got going on here. To me, it's a huge bump, and needed to show you that for the evidence of today's video. Got the background sound coming on. Okay, so here we are today, and I want to start out with a personal quote that I have come up with, and that is obedience is not passive, it's active trust. And trust is the most powerful thing that you can lead with. So, in today's random episode, I'm going to discuss pregnancy, burnout, and being chosen anyway. I did not expect to record such an episode, to be perfectly honest with you. I obviously showed you my belly, so I am pregnant. I am exhausted. And it has been a journey to get here over the last 6.5 months to come to this place where I feel comfortable coming back on camera, showing you my face, and giving you the behind the scenes of where I'm at. And I'm going to share what it's like to be completely empty physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially, and still trust that Jesus is leading my life. And if you feel like you have lost your edge, you feel like you're burnt out, you feel like you're doing all the things and you're not being led where you think that you should be led, this is an episode for you and to remind you that obedience is not weakness. It's a strategy for the long run, for sustainable progress in your life. And so I posed the question in the last episode of who are you being? And today it's where am I striving in my own strength instead of handing it over to that higher power? Where am I striving in my own strength instead of handing it over to a higher power? So I pose that question to you because that's something that I had to ask myself since February, where I took this pause, if you will. I'm not calling it a sabbatical, calling it a pause. And it really is a reevaluation of my business and my leadership and my role, not only within my own company, but within my family, within my relationships, and what is next for this chapter of my life. And I may not have all the answers. I certainly don't, and I'm okay with that. However, I am still being led and just led in a different way, led in a way in which I didn't know was possible. And so I'm going to get into all of that um, and share more about what has been going on. And, there's been days where I felt completely burnt out. I felt completely lost, as if the only thing that made me worthy, the only thing that gave me purpose was production within my business. And we are in this world that glorifies performance and production, and rest feels like we shouldn't be doing that, right? It's a rebellious activity. And The hardest part about all of this is people in my life going, oh, well, why don't you just go get a job that'll solve all the problems? Or why don't you just do XYZ? And that is not where I'm being led, and that's not where I'm being called. It's not a season of push, ironically, having a baby in a couple months. It's a season of rest. And there is a lot of messy, especially the messy middle that we talk about, um, that we don't get to share comfortably. And yet I'm going to share it comfortably with you because it is messy. It's raw. And if you have been following me for a while, I think you know that I'm okay with the rawness and the messy. Mhm. Now, all that being said, I have some guilt. I have talked about feeling guilty. I still feel a level of guilt and shame for not bringing in a certain amount of income. Um, Burnout that's really hard to explain, especially because I'm pregnant and people go, "Oh, well, you're just having a baby." It's way more than that. I am wrestling with the the things of this world, right? And the things of the spiritual world and trying to figure out my place in all of it. I feel like I look really short sitting on my medicine ball. I mean, my pregnancy ball, and I already am short, and now it's making me even shorter. So there's my random thought for the day. And I am wrestling with what does success mean? How to redefine it while not performing. Because a lot of us get caught up in performance is tied to my participation. My participation is so important to this world, and that's how I contribute, and that defines my success. And after working with clients for the last year within the executive sobriety coaching space, we have redefined success for each one of my clients. For one of my clients, it's about redefining success within his marriage and his relationship with his children. With another, it is redefining being enough and how that aligns to his business, but also his relationship with his parents and drinking. I have another client who's redefining success as slowing down, recognizing emotions instead of numbing them or avoiding them. And my own personal definition of success is not unique, but quite different because I view my success as being curious. Now, I have a very curious and inquisitive 4-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old, who asks questions that I cannot answer off the tip of my tongue, let alone with a pregnancy brain. Things like, what does heaven look like? Or where do dogs go when they face trials and tribulations and death? What happens when the earth falls apart and we're left to figure it out? I don't know the answers to these questions. And yet I get curious with her and I allow myself to go down the rabbit hole of curiosity because that to me is a successful trait that applies to parenting and applies to business and relationships. The more curious that I become, the more I find myself being in joy. And someone explained this to me the other day, and I'm going to relay it to you. There's happiness and there's joy, and they're two different things. Happiness, the hap in happiness, HAP, hap means now. So it means in the moment. Whereas joy is everlasting. God talks about everlasting joy. We are allowed to have that. And yet we think in world view that we deserve happiness, that we should strive for happiness. I'm striving for joy. I don't care about happiness. There's moments and there's times that I am not happy and I'm angry. And Jesus was angry. That dude flipped tables and he got angry. He whipped some people. He whipped people in the temple that day. And, they were throwing stones at him. And he was like, bring it. He was angry. It's okay to get angry as long as we're not holding on to the bitterness and resentment behind it. So when we talk about joy, which is the complete opposite of anger, it's everlasting. We get to have that. We can have hard moments and we can be happy in the moment, but we can have everlasting joy. And so redefining success while not in my business, performing, making money, hiring a team, bringing on new clients, I get to redefine what success looks like, and it's curiosity. And curiosity is being so open to what the possibilities might be and wherever the Lord wants to lead me and to be okay with that. Now, while this is occurring, this piece around redefining success, on the other hand, I am trusting that God is providing. And this is a really hard one for me because I'm an independent business owner. And so I have provided financially within my family unit for the last, what, since I've been married since 2019. And it has been multiple six figures. It has been, us going on trips and having this beautiful life. And we still have a wonderful, beautiful life. And we're bringing another child on board. And like the luxuries, if you will, who cares? And most people look at it and go, why would you want to stop that? Why don't you just push through? Why don't you just strive for more? I'm here to say that that feels like a burden. Why would I not want to trust God when I know that He's providing and at the same time know that I am not a burden? Let me break this down. When I paused at the end of February and I had um, really great month in January, really great month in February, and also in March. And then things just paused because I was exhausted. I physically was exhausted. Mentally, I had no more to give, no more to be on online platforms. It was as if everything just, and I had to come to terms with all of that. And there was a part of me that felt as if I was the stone on the end of the rope dragging my husband into the bottom of the ocean. Picture that, right? I am the anchor, but not a good one. And wrestling with this concept of, um, do I belong in this partnership with him? Do I belong running this business? Do I belong working with clients and not bringing new ones on? And yet I have nurtured the ones that I continue to work with in such a way that I don't think I would be able to give to them if I had a full book of business. And I very could easily have a full book of business, especially with the niche that I'm in and the world in which we find it in. And yet here I am. It is May. So 3 months, uh, 4 months rather, since February have gone by, and I've trusted God to provide, and He has. My husband's business is thriving. I still have income coming in, and we're doing all right. And so I am no longer feeling like that rock pulling my husband down. I actually lifted the rock up onto my shoulders and threw it back onto shore and handed it over to God and said, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this burden. This is not mine to carry. I deserve to be here, and I don't deserve to feel like I'm dragging someone else down or even myself down because I know that I can trust the process. And trust is not an easy thing to capitalize on. Once you figure out how to do it, everything else seems more simple. This has taken years, years to trust myself, years to feel like I am doing the right thing. I am enough. I don't neglect my needs anymore. I also don't feel the need to perform, and no one's out there rejecting me, right? That's a core wound that I had to come to terms with this season of rejection and feeling like, well, I'm just being rejected. Actually, I'm being redirected, and it is the most beautiful process. And when you're being redirected, you walk in obedience. And when you walk in obedience, there are going to be times when other people do not understand your assignment. They just can't because they're not walking in obedience. And they're also not seeing you as a leader, they're seeing you as a failure. And your walk is not their walk. So, your walk of obedience, and I'm speaking to all people here. So, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a pregnant woman or a dad. It really just does not matter. It doesn't matter about your belief system either. This is for you if you feel like, well, I'm doing what I've been called to do, I'm in my purpose, but everybody around me sees something different and wants to offer different advice and wants to share their opinion and try to block my blessing. There is such a gift in all of that because you're over here walking the walk and all these other people are giving their advice, and you get to choose what is right. You get to choose, right? And you get to trust yourself in that choosing. You can choose to listen to everybody else. I could choose to sit here and listen to all of which my father's advice is just go work down the street at Tesla, get a job, we'll get you in. Like, and work 80, 90 hours a week, never see my family or my kids, travel all the time, never be home, not be present. I'm 38. I'm not 28. I'm not 18. No, thank you. And yet, thank you for trusting me for this life that I get to live and have free will over, and also get to trust that I'm being provided for in this season. Obedience goes deeper. This is a topic that I could rage war on and with. So I bring it back to curiosity. How do we get curious about our obedience? How do you get really curious about what you should be obeying, who you should be obeying, right? And when other people don't understand you and the assignment that you're on, can you remain in obedience? Can you see that the path that you're on is exactly where you're supposed to be? Because a lot of us go, "Ooh, I don't know. This is probably not it. Maybe I should think, maybe I should." And we start shoulding all over ourselves. So bring it back to, again, that curiosity piece. Can you get curious about your obedience? And as you do, can you also learn to release the guilt and the shame of not following everyone else's expectations and following the road less traveled that Robert Frost talks about, right? There's the road that everyone else is on. If you've ever seen that, there's a comic where it's like um problems problems to be solved, and there's this huge line of people and this one person at the counter and solving all the problems. And then there's one person, nobody's at that window, and it says something like, has the solution. And I'm that person, right? I found the solution to my problems. I found the solution to releasing the guilt around income, around ambition, and around rest. Rest is not weakness. Rest is trust. Trust and knowing that I am fully provided for and I do not need to question that. So I can release this guilt around making more money and being more ambitious and putting myself out there. Now, I disclose my age, 38. I feel that not only will I leave this earth at 108, got a lot of life left, I have my entire career and life in front of me. And this is a season of patience, diligence, obedience, and mothering. Not only mothering children, but mothering myself and figuring out a deeper meaning of me. And there's no guilt in that. And to give you a little bit of background, um, you know, my parents are still married. They're coming up, they'll be 40 years married next year. And they had me very young in their 20s. And so they parented the way that 20-year-olds would parent. And they had a lot of help. They had grandparents. They had, or I had grandparents that were willing and able-bodied to help. Um, they worked. They did the best they could with the tools that they had. And yet there was still this level of deep wanting them to be around more. And that just wasn't possible for their careers and for being the oldest of four. And so as I got older and I started a family and realized like that guilt was passed down, that was generational, that was real. Um, in the process of releasing that recently and realizing that my worth is not tied to my income, my worth is not tied to what I do in this lifetime. My worth is not tied to striving for perfection all of the time. And those are all the things that were modeled to me growing up. So if you're not working, you're lazy. If you're not putting an effort in, and you're just a mom and you're just a stay-at-home mom, there's something wrong with you. When you have the degrees and you have the ability and you have all the things that you could offer this world and you're not doing them, basically you're wasting your life and you're just not enough. And so in the last few months, I have released that feeling because it is not mine and it never was, but it was passed down. And so I had to figure out how to rid myself of that. And I did it in several ways. I got involved in a relationship program called Restoring Relationships, which was excellent. I started leaning more into being obedient in my faith and walking a walk with Jesus and understanding what it looks like to be a mother of faith, that striving is not something that I need to put on me. Also learned how to break off generational curses. That's a whole different podcast in and of itself. Um, if you want to learn deliverance, go watch Can We Talk podcast. And so releasing these things and learning like, well, who is Brittany? And I'm not going to give you the definition because it's vast and it is long. But what I will say to you is this: I have learned how to receive. and how to know that the truth is out there and it's available to all of us. I am valuable and I am a chosen daughter of God. I am seen, not just by my little ones or my husband or my clients or whatever, but I know me. I am seen within, and God sees me. And that is enough. And I don't need more than that. And one last thing is, I haven't quit. I simply surrendered. And that has been the most strategic move that I could have made in this season. And so, I didn't expect this to be the episode that I put out there for you all. Um, but here we are. And I think the last thing that I want to say to you all is you are chosen. You are still seen. You are valuable. Can you trust that? Can you trust that if you are in a season right now of what we'll call quiet obedience, if you're in that season and it feels like failure, I want you to know that you're not alone. And this is definitely a post for you to hang your coat up on and say, I'm here. Because there is no striving when we have the strength of God. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove anything to me. You don't have to prove anything to anybody else. You get to just be. And there's something obedient about that. There's something about trusting yourself and letting that be enough, right? Um, you do not have to be doing all of the time. And I think that we get so caught up in that, and we get so caught up in our calendar being full and feeling like we need to fill the space because there's this fear of performance, fear of neglect. Who are you really neglecting when your calendar is full? And who are you really, or rather, what are you trying to avoid by filling the space? And so I'll leave you with the question that I started with, which is where am I striving in my own strength instead of trusting God, instead of allowing myself to lean on his understanding? Because to me, my friend, when I feel neglected, that's when I get emotionally unregulated. I feel like I'm rejecting myself, I'm rejecting others, and then I feel like I need to perform for someone or something, and then I don't see my value. And if I don't see my value, then I'm not enough. And that might be where you're at, right? You might feel this way, and that's normal. And at the same time, you can lay it all down. You don't have to strive for perfection, and you're not failing. So I hope this resonates with one of you out there. Um, and this hits home because to me, without sacred surrender, without deep awareness, I, first of all, wouldn't be doing this episode. And second of all, there's no way I could come and talk to you about this without a smile on my face. I really hope this resonates. I know I was going to talk about quit like a leader and what that meant. This is what it means. This is the definition of quitting like a leader. Quitting is not Wrong. I'm going to leave you with this story. I was 16 years old and I played high school soccer, high school basketball, and I ran track. Honor student. I had it all going for me. And this is not my addiction story. This is a story about quitting. One of the mottos that got instilled in my family was never quit. We don't quit at things that we start. We just don't do it. And yet here I am. We had a soccer game and it was pouring down rain and our team was up at halftime. I think it was like 9-0. So our assistant coach came over at halftime to us scrubs, if you will, and said, "All right, y'all are going to get in. We don't know when, but you're going to get in. Just coach will put you in." So I'm like, cool, can't wait because I hadn't played since I was a freshman. I played in one of the very first games in the season, and I was a quite a defender. And a ball hit me in the like forearm, shoulder area, something like that. They called a handball, and the girl scored on our goalie. And so my coach at that time held that against me for 2.5 years. So here we are, we're up nothing, and the scrubs get in, all but me. We go up 11-0. One of my girlfriends scored, another girl scored, all was well, and there was like still maybe 10, 11 minutes left. And then I'm junior, and so I'm like, okay, everybody's getting in. I'm the only one that didn't get in. Every time he walked by me, he just looked at me with disgust because he held this grudge against me. And there was nothing I could do. I went up to the assistant coach. The only thing I said was, "Am I getting in?" And he looked at me and said, disappointingly, "No." So I was defeated, angry, upset. Like, how could this be happening? Everybody else is getting in. I'm one of the probably the one of the best players on the JV team. This is so unacceptable that this person is going to hold a grudge against me for 2.5 years, and this is what I get. Game ends. I go home with my dad, and I just get in the car and I bawl my eyes out. And he looks over at me, and for the first time in my teenage years, my father was my father. And he looked at me and he said, "You are allowed to quit. And you are allowed to quit like a leader." And sometimes, Brittany, leaders quit things not because they want but because they have to make room and space for something greater. So we drove home and I took a shower and I kind of sat in my own tears and I bravely walked back down the steps with my uniform still soaking wet from the game, standing there on the field. I put it in a plastic bag. My dad was playing with my 2-year-old sister and my 5-year-old brother. And I said, I don't think I can walk back into the gym with my head held high to hand the coach my uniform. Can you do it? And again, very sympathetically, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll go over there right now. I know he's still over there." I said, "Dad, you know I don't quit." And he said, "Well, you're being a leader right now, and I respect your quitting." So he hand the uniform to dad. He drives back over there. He gives it to the coach. Not really sure what the words were between them. Really none of my business. Long story short, this is how God works. Okay. Another parent, 15 minutes after my dad left, went up to the coach. And, back in the day, parents didn't really do that. There was a lot of respect between coaches and parents, not like it is today. Nobody's getting paid off um, to coach teams. So this guy goes up to the coach and basically rips him a new one and says, "You should have put her in," meaning me. "How dare you? Can't believe you embarrassed her like that." And they had words back and forth. Well, enough parents, unbeknownst to my own and to me, rallied behind me and stood firm on what had happened. And that coach got fired shortly thereafter. This all went down, and the principal heard about it. Archdiocese heard about it, Catholic school, and he was fired. And I did quit, and I did not go back. Um, he stayed on until the state championship, in which they lost. It was the only time they lost in my 4 years of being there. Following season, we went on to be undefeated and won the state championship and had the fewest goals against us in the state. And that's God for you. You can quit something and still be a leader. You can quit something and still be a leader. And that is why this podcast mini series, Quit Like a Leader, exists. So I leave you with this. Um, really hope it resonates. And I look forward to dropping the next episode, which is going to be a little bit more fire geared towards you. We're going to talk about the truth about you and why you don't want to hear it. This was a kind of a fluffy episode to get us ready and prepare you for what's to come next. So thanks for tuning in. You can always drop your comments, questions, anything that you've got in this live session. And I look forward to seeing you again. I see you.